Hey everyone, in this video, I'm on the beta, and we're going to go over some of the upcoming ARMS changes. Now, as a disclaimer, this is beta, everything is subject to change, but with the pre-patch so close, I don't see any big changes coming in. It's also worth noting that they haven't done a balance pass yet, so we're going to, for the most part, ignore the damage numbers. Now, the big main change is to Colossus Smash. It has replaced Battle Cry as a DPS cooldown, 45 seconds, flat, not affected by haste, flat 30%, not affected by mastery anymore, 10 seconds. Our mastery has been changed to deep runes. Mortal Strike, Execute, Blade Storm apply a 3-second dot, and this is increased by our mastery. It is worth noting also that Mortal Strike, Execute, and Blade Storm each apply different dots, so you can get 3 up at a time with a 3-second cooldown. You really can't. In place of Colossus Smash on our rotation, it overpowers now baseline, doesn't cost rage, 12-second cooldown, not affected by haste, and the rolled the Shattered Defense proc right into it. Increases the damage of your next Mortal Strike by 20% or 30% with a talent, stacking to 2 times. The big changes come in the talents. The talent tree is completely different, so we'll go over them one by one. War Machine, your auto attacks generate extra rage. When you kill somebody, get rage and move speed. Mostly in AoE or dungeon talent, rage isn't really a problem on single target, not until you start spamming, Whirlwind for cleave. Sudden Death, it's literally just the ring as a talent. Probably the best for single target, since Execution is precision, the artifact trait is now a Azurite armor trait. Skull Splitter, it doesn't see a lot of use, you don't really need the rage. It mostly does a distinct damage as a slam, so you don't need it a lot. Double time's the same. Impending Victories has been brought over from the tank spec to the 2 DPS specs. Shockwave is gone, by the way. Still have Stormbolt. Massacre, this is what I've been using for single target. Execute is now usable below 35% health. Just a lot more execute spam. Fervor of Battle has been changed. Whirlwind now does 10% more flat damage, but also casts a free slam on the target. So you do the Whirlwind damage. The Whirlwind damage is increased by 10%. And then it also does a free slam onto the primary target. And then Rend has mostly stayed the same. It is now cost more rage and is affected by haste. So probably gets better with gear. I can see probably Massacre being the best for the majority of situations. Second Wind, unchanged. Bounding Stride, unchanged. Defensive Stance, unchanged. Collateral damage. So Sweeping Strikes is no longer a talent. It is now a set ability. 25-second cooldown for 10 seconds. Your single target abilities hit 1, so not 2, 1. Additional target for 100% of the damage. It means you refund some rage whenever you do it, so refunds 20% of rage cost when you hit 2 targets. So on cleave fights could be good, so you're, save some rage on Mortal Strikes. Warbreaker just turns Colossus Smash from single target to AoE, just like the Legion artifact ability. Cleave is gone from the baseline build and is now a talent. Cooldown is affected by haste, mine's at 5.7 with, next to no haste. Does a bit of damage, hits 3 more targets, applies a deep wound, so consistent AoE ability. This is where it starts to get interesting. So right now I have Avatar. Avatar's the same, except it just generates 20 rage when you use it. So, pop it, boom, 20 rage, just flat. Is on GCD, does trigger GCD. That's probably why they put the rage in there. In for the kill, Colossus Smash increases your haste by 10% or 20% if the target is below 20% health, last 10 seconds. So 10% outside of execute range, 20 if in execute range. Colossus Smash is a 45-second cooldown unless you take Anger Management, which we'll get to in a minute. So I don't see that being too good outside of maybe AoE for extra, if you need the area of the burst. And the Deadly Calm 1-minute cooldown reduces rage cost by 100% for 6 seconds. Rage isn't a problem right now, so I don't see that being too good. Probably Avatar, just more damage boosting. Last tier is where it gets really interesting. Anger Management. For every 20 rage you spend, reduces the remaining cooldown of Colossus Smash and Blade Storm by 1 second. Now, Blade Storm baseline just does more damage and applies deep wounds, so on AoE it's especially good for that, applying that deep wound. And then Colossus Smash, that's a single target damage increase if you just want more Colossus Smash, so if you want to do like Colossus Smash and in for the kill. Or if you take, the big one is if you take Warbreaker and Blade Storm now on smaller cooldowns. You can always pair them up. If you take Anger Management, you can always pair them up, and you can always get one War Breaker in between every Blade Storm, so really good AoE ability there. Dreadnought Overpower has 10 charges, and it increases the damage of your next mortal strike by an additional 10%. 20% base or 30 with his talent. Good for single target. The damage that Overpower itself does is kind of lackluster, but it lets you have 2 charges to stack the 60% a lot easier. And then Ravager is the same. I'm not sure how good it will be for AoE compared to Anger Management, because having both of them on lower cooldowns might be better. Especially since you can just tie Bladestorm and Warbreaker together more often. With this, it's just every 45 seconds you compare them. With this, it's every 30 seconds you compare them, plus get an extra Warbreaker in between, which you can, for AoE, you can pair with some Sweeping Strikes or Whirlwind for better AoE ability. So a quick rundown of how it plays, training dummy here. Avatar going in, charge, Warbreaker, got a proc. We'll stack the Mortal Strike. Got another proc. Slam as a filler. This guy's just gonna parry everything I do. There we go. Get behind him. And now it's not as on live. It is very important that you do Colossus Smash and then Mortal Strike. On the beta, it's not as important to do an Overpower than Mortal Strike. Mortal Strike on its own just hits harder. So it's not a priority to get those stacks in, but if you can, you want to try to get them in. So, you know, if I go a while without getting a reset and Mortal Strike just comes back, just going to dump that charge. So for the rotation is largely the same. It's just a lot less set in stone. You do not have to wait for, you know, you're not so reliant on Tactician procs to reset your Colossus Smash or Overpower in this case. And Tactician only resets only resets Overpower. But again, it's just not as set in stone. You're not feast or famine off of getting those resets like you are on live. If you get them, great. You just get to stack some Mortal Strike more. If you don't get it, it's not the end of the world. You'll still do decent DPS. My only concern is that right now, as it is balanced, and again, the balancing may change, but we're really reliant, Arms Warriors are really reliant on bursting into Colossus Smash or, you know, Warbreaker windows. That it makes target swapping or dungeons a bit kind of wonky if you do not take Anger Management, just because you really need to be applying that Colossus Smash debuff to really get the big numbers out. Now on single target, I don't think it'd be as much of a problem. I still think Dreadnought will be the go-to. Just have 2 charges. Not only to keep buffing Mortal Strike more, but if you get Tactician procs on top of already having Overpower off of cooldown, you don't waste that Tactician proc, so you can kind of like sit on Tactician procs now. Pop some cooldowns. Mortal Strike does still hit pretty heavy though. I'm not sure how the scaling works. I haven't seen it much on the PTR, but it seems to hit pretty good. Some, you know, 15k plus big hits. So not as, you know, we're not getting those big one shot, you know, 6 million like we are on live right now, where you can one shot a player, but it does seem a lot more consistent. You're not as reliant on those buffs. So that's a quick rundown of the talents and everything. I'm going to queue for a dungeon and we will give it a go. So here we are in a dungeon. These are the talents I'm running. I'm taking Anger Management instead of Dreadnought for the better single target or better AoE. Again, mostly going to ignore damage numbers, just kind of see how it plays. I find sudden death is proccing a lot. I think that might need a nerf, might be nerfed. Because it just constantly goes. There's one. It's gonna stop proccing this and make me look bad. And that's Massacre kicking in, so he's got a much longer execute phase. This is the one thing I love, though, that the power that you get from Blade Storm, Warbreaker Blade Storm, just feels very, very strong. Rooted. See if I can't get some super strikes and Wenches is gone. Super strikes. Spamming those executes. Sudden death procs. So initial impressions are good. The initial damage numbers look good. I know we said I wasn't really going to talk about the damage numbers, but comparatively to where everyone else is, Arms does seem to be in the upper, I'd say upper quarter, upper 25% of specs. So if that's a baseline you care about, there's that. But I mean, overall, it plays well. The damage seems good, like, comparatively to where everyone else is. We're sort of, in the upper part of the pack. The main concern I had was rage problems. There's no real rage problem. Spec is a lot slower comparatively to, say, in Taurus, where we would just whirlwind spam bots. Or, back when we were focus rage spam bots back in Nighthold. You do a lot less slam. You do a lot less slamming than you think you would, or that we're used to. It's kind of weird when you get around to it. Most of the global cooldown changes and the lack of haste. Everybody's just running so much less haste, so things are a lot slower. But I just find that I'm very rarely actually using slam. Maybe one in between every Mortal Strike or something. Just kind of having everything on lower cooldowns, like Overpower's on a lower cooldown than live version Colossus Smash. A lot of sudden death procs. A lot of technician procs, so I just find, like, I don't need to slam because it's the bottom of the priority. Like, look at that, Mortal Strike, Overpower, we can go one slam in. Another slam in. So overall, it plays slower because you're not spamming so many abilities, but it's a little more active in the sense that you're doing more than just using Slam or Whirlwind over and over again like you do on live. I'm constantly using other abilities that aren't Slam or aren't Whirlwind, and that's a good feeling compared to in Taurus, where it's just, Colossus Smash, Mortal Strike, Whirlwind, 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 Whirlwind. Okay, then back to Colossus Smash, Mortal Strike, 5 more Whirlwinds, repeat. Unless you're lucky with Tactician procs, in which case it's always just kind of Colossal Smash, Mortal Strike, until you can't, and then you Slam or Whirlwind. But now you just have, with the global cooldown changes, and you can press less buttons, you kind of end up pressing a wider variety of buttons other than just the same one. One of the big problems I have noticed with Arms, it's not happening so much in this dungeon because stuff is dying so fast. But when I was doing like some raid finder testing or whatever, the threat generation changes they made for tanks. So in case you don't know, tanks just generate less threat right now. That's a weird screen effect. As Arms, you can often find yourself just kind of pulling aggro with how hard your abilities hit. So that is worth noting. I'm not sure how that'll be on live. They're probably going to buff the threat generation a bit anyway. But it is definitely worth noting that compared to some of the other specs I've tried and other classes I've tried, it is predominantly a big problem for Arms. Well, not a big problem, but like a problem worth noting. Oh, I'm stunned. That may be a case of balancing or depending on your tank. Like with this tank or my guild's main tank, who's playing Demon Hunt in the beta, I don't have any aggro problems, but in previous groups I was in, like I was in a group earlier today with a Paladin tank, and I hit anything and I just got aggro from him. Big old Blade Storm. And if you look at the DPS charts, you can see a large portion of it is the mastery, is the deep runes. The mastery does hit pretty good. So, I mean, I'm imagining when it comes to live, sort of like a prediction, is that mastery and crit are going to be the stats to go for. Don't really need haste because we're not as reliant on it as we are on live. We don't need the haste for the lower global cooldowns or to generate more rage to whirlwind spam. It's not such a big deal. I think it's just going to be mastery for those big dots and then crit, since we don't have battle cry anymore, where you don't have that 100% crit to put into the burst. That crit's going to be more important. Because you don't need crit on live because you get it from battle cry and you just put it into your burst window. But we don't have crit. We don't have built-in crit here from battle cry, or because you're not using the artifact anymore, no artifact traits. So I think crit's going to be big for Arms Warriors again, like the old days. Finish clearing all this trash before we pull this boss. I have yet to really try out a wide variety of other talents, though. Some of them just don't work right. Like, for a battle, I'm not sure if it's actually doing the extra slam, because the damage it does is very little. And that also tends to be the build I'm doing now is more rage friendly, right? I'm not adding in a rend, I'm not adding in fervor battle, which costs more rage. The one time I did try fervor of battle, I found out I was always rage starved, which makes me think you would have to take War Machine with it, and then is it worth taking War Machine just to be able to do fervor battle? It kind of depends. I feel like we're probably doing this dungeon wrong, but I don't really care. And then with Massacre, it just start the execute spam, really. The Executioner's Precision comes from a Azurite gear, which I do not currently have, so for me, execute spam every execute range is just execute. Did you experience any bugs with this enemy? No. Now, comparatively to Fury, on the beta, Arms is the better spec as of right now. Again, I think it might be down to a balancing pass because they haven't done one yet. And they just reworked our Fury. Just reworked Fury like a week ago. Fury is a completely different thing that I might do a video about. It's never been my preferred spec. I think overall on the beta, Arms is just the better spec right now. It just plays better, it feels better. It's got better mechanics designed in that'll make it scale better. That's one of the things worth noting, is when you have all these damage increases like Colossus Smash, like Avatar, you're not so haste dependent like Fury is, are these things that are going to make you scale better. Plus, once you get gear with Execution Precision, the damage, the execute burn that you can get is just going to be immense with Massacre. So you can stack in an Executioner's Precision, plus 2 overpowers into a big Mortal Strike, and you're going to, below 35%, you are going to burn a boss. And that's the execute spam, some of the execute spam right there, that just hits like a damn truck. Overall, the spec just has a better natural flow to it compared to live. You just don't feel so set into doing everything in a specific rotation. You just kind of do it when it comes up available. You're not waiting for anything. It's like you have a priority list, not a rotation, which just kind of feels better, flows more naturally. And Arms right now, in this current build, is one of the few specs that doesn't get screwed by the global cooldown changes, like some other specs do. Like it really screwed with Fury. They did rework Fury. Shadow Priests are having a lot of trouble right now. Just because they stuck so much stuff back on the global cooldown, but thankfully Arms isn't really bothered by that. It's just like a nice methodical sort of priority list you just go through. How many bosses we got left? 2 bosses. And I do like in the current iteration that I never really feel like I'm rage starved, right? I'm never wanting for rage. I just kind of have enough that I can just keep going. Again, that's with the specific talents I'm running. With different talents, it could be different. Something I'll definitely test out and then maybe do another video on. But I'm never wanting for rage. I'm never waiting like I had been on live. Sometimes, you know, with Inturus and the Fervor Battle Trauma build, you end up just burning through so much rage that eventually you're rage starved, just kind of waiting. I'm never getting that right now. Even, you know, in execute range, it's not that bad. Which has predominantly been one of our... Which has always been one of our worst spots. Is when you get to execute, suddenly you're just rage starved. Let's hope this group doesn't wipe. Got him. That was close. I should probably learn the mechanics before I start rolling around doing dungeons. Have to pop every damn cooldown there. But that's something worth noting, is the survivability of Arms is immense right now. Die by the Sword is the same, lost 5% due to Artifact being gone, but still have Die by the Sword, 100% parry, and 30% less damage taken. Battle Cry is the same, or Commanding Shield has been changed to Rallying Cry, and just name change does the same thing. And they also gave us Impending Victory, which heals you for 15% of your maximum health on a 30-second cooldown. Probably what saved me there. It's just a good bit of extra healing. And again, you don't really need double time because you're never really running out and heroic leaping out and charging back in like you used to. There's no shockwave to take. Stormbolt maybe if like the dungeon requires it, but probably just Impending Victory for the survivability. I mean, really the only time I will probably switch to double time is if I really feel like I need the mobility for a high mobility dungeon or boss fight. You know, if we get another ENR or something like that. Or Agrimar, where you're running around, you know, killing a bunch of ads or whatever. Then I would take double time, but I'll probably just sit on Impending Victory just for the sake of being able to use it. I mean, it even does, it does decent damage too. It does like slam levels of damage. Like here, I'm getting low. Boom, throwing in, get a bunch of health back. Healers will thank you for it. So here there's a bit of aggro problems when I was AoEing and on something that tanks wasn't standing in the tanks AoEs. In which case I probably should have pulled him in, but just the hard hitting abilities and the cleave power from, you know, Warbreaker and Blade Storm and Sweeping Strikes. But again, part of that might be balancing problems, might just be tanks are shit. A lot of the tanks are doing a lot less damage than they should, so that could be part of it. But I feel like on live with a coordinated group, aggro shouldn't be a problem. Just means Hunters will start using Misdirect again. They also moved a lot of stuns, overall stuns, like as you can see, Arms Warriors do not have Shockwave anymore, neither do Fury. The tank spec still has its baseline, actually, for Prot Warriors, but a lot of DPS specs have been losing their big AoE stuns. So that's one of the things that's kind of sucks. We don't have Shockwave anymore. Shockwave, really good for Mythic Plus, for those high keys. Also really good for PvP, for arenas and stuff, being able to get that big 3-person stun, get the cooldown reduced, that's gone. Just have Stormbolt now, but I think losing Shockwave for Impending Victory, overall a good change for ARMS. So that's one of the things that ARMS kind of suffered with for Legion, is you had decent survivability, but you didn't have any sort of like self-healing or anything to get back on. Unless you used Legendary Bracers or Soul of the Slaughter from the artifact wasn't bad, but just having some little bit of self-healing utility is a nice change. Got some Titan stuff going on in this dungeon. Again, get low there, boom. This thing getting good. Nope. Yeah, I don't think we're supposed to fight 2 of those guys at once. Oh well, what can you do? I'll wait for the res. So overall, good changes. Impending Victory, good. Moving away from being Colossal Smash to Overpower, good. I really didn't like the whole just doing only damage inside of Colossal Smash windows. So that's a good change. Bad change, I don't like the Sweeping Strikes being a button. I preferred it as a talent. When it was in an option with, at the time it was a single target option in Dauntless, a dead option in Overpower, and then an AoE option Sweeping Strikes. I preferred it being passive. This is an extra button on the global cooldown that's just kind of annoying to use. So that kind of sucks. I don't like Shockwave being gone. I still wish we had Shockwave. Shockwave instead of Stormbolt, please. Or whatnot. Or just put, Shockwave here, make double time baseline. I don't see why, but double time shouldn't be baseline for all 3 specs. Like, Prot automatically has 2 charges of Intercept. All 3 specs should have that. Overall, there isn't much to complain about. Just some, little talent changes I'm not a big fan of, but overall, good changes. The new Mastery is nice. It's just kind of, free passive damage on your abilities, so you're no longer... Kill this guy. Heavily reliant on burst windows or, Colossal Smash Up time. If you don't have Colossal Smash Up, you're fine. You still do decent DPS. You're not reliant on it because it's just your small single target burst window. So Battle Cry being gone, I like that too. It just never seemed right for ARMS. That's sort of like the Recklessness Fury is better for them, for that sort of class fantasy. It didn't seem right for ARMS. I like Colossal Smash, Warbreaker, and like Avatar as the ARMS cooldowns. I think I'm supposed to stack on this boss, I'm not sure. Sudden death. Looks like 2 sudden deaths in a row. But again, I'm not sitting here waiting for Tactician procs or Rage Starved or any of it. It's just sort of just playing through it normally. Sort of a tier list. Execute, Overpower, Mortal Strike, Slam. The order of what you do them in isn't that important. Just kind of keep them on cooldown and then slam if you can't do anything else. Here we are, execute range, and then just start spamming. And dungeon done. So this has been Alidorn's quick look at BFA ARMS. Overall, good impressions. The future looks bright, boys. Let me know what you thought of this video and what you think of ARMS and BFA in the comments below. And I will talk to you guys later.